You're listening to Black Parents Aging, where we help you navigate caring for aging loved ones. Every Wednesday, we'll discuss how to help your parents successfully navigate this new season of life. We are going to talk about legal, health, technology, and finances. Here's your host attorneys, Olivia Smith and Nicola Robinson.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Black Parents Aging. So glad to have you guys with us. This is Olivia Smith. I'm by myself today. Nicola is not with me and I don't have a guest, so it's just me and you. We recently celebrated episode 20, and so we were real hype about that we've been giving you an episode every Wednesday for 20 consecutive weeks. And so we deem that as something to celebrate, something to be proud of. And so we are excited to be back with a new episode. Now, this episode is going to be a shorter episode, and it is based on a report that I read. And it interested me and intrigued me so much that I hope that we have a part 2 where there is an interview. But this episode is going to be talking about African American older adults and race-related stress. So we know all about stress. We know the stressors that show up in our lives, all of the demands that we have on our lives, and also the demands that older adults, our aging parents and grandparents may have on their lives. But I think something that we don't think a lot about, and I certainly hadn't thought aloud about, is the stressors that are in our life simply because of our race, simply because we're Black, simply because we're African American, the different stressors we have in our lives than other demographic of people have in their lives that they don't experience. And so this report really caught my attention because it was talking about that specifically for older adults. And so, older adults are our people. And so when I see that, it always makes me stop to see, okay, well, what is being said about my group of folks? And so this caught my attention because when I really think about my parents, what I thought was, they lived through the civil rights movement. So the things that may have a large impact on me and that may cause stress on me, they're OGs in this game. And so perhaps it does not affect them in the same way because they've experienced much worse, they've seen much worse. And so, this is nothing compared to what they've lived through. But this report says that perhaps that is not the case. And so as I was reading this report, I was like, okay, I've got to talk about this on the podcast because I want other people to really think about that when they're thinking about their parents and grandparents and just consider this. So it says that currently more than 4 million African Americans over the age of 65, with a projected growth of about 12 million by 2060. So this isn't a small demographic of people, and this is not a shrinking demographic of people. This is a growing demographic of people. And so we need, not only are they our loved ones and in our family, there's only going to increase over time. And so we really need to understand what are the things that are causing stress and anxiety to aging and older adults that are African American. And so when we ask about race-related stress, what is that? Hadn't really been something that I've heard a lot of talk about, something that I've even considered. But race-related stress occurs when an individual experiences or witnesses racist incidents that evoke social and historical experiences of racism. And so when I think of my parents and I think of them being strong, or things now may not affect them in the same way because of them living through the civil rights movement or them living through more difficult times. After reading this report, what I found was that's not correct, because what they talk about is they talk about something called cumulative race-related stressors. And so what that is, you look at the cumulative impact. So yes, they've lived through tougher times, and those tougher times with this stacked on top of it creates more stress in their lives. And so you can't isolate the incidents, right? You have to look at it as a totality of incidents when you're talking about older adults. What is the cumulative effect of everything that they have witnessed and experienced in their lives? And so, what we don't hear a lot about, there hasn't been a lot of talk about, is really the impact of those cumulative stressors on the physical and mental health of African American aging adults. And I think that that is definitely something we need to be aware of and something we need to take into consideration, that what we may take as like strength is having an effect on our loved ones because it's just another thing added. And I think for me, it made me sit back and made me rethink how I evaluate how certain things that happen now, race related incidents that happen now, how that may be affecting my parents and my aging loved ones. And I think this part of the article really just summarizes perfectly what the report is about. And it says, for African American older adults, these encounters are accumulated over their lifespan, stored in memory, and relived with each new racist and discriminatory experience. And so it's not just one incident here and then, one incident when in the 60s and then no, it stacks, it accumulates. It's added stressors. And a new incident may also be a trigger to then have them relive an incident that happened in the past. And so I think it is very important that we take that into consideration. And I know in previous episodes, we've talked about having tough conversations. We did episodes about dementia and how we should be talking to our parents and loved ones, trying to figure out, are they having memory loss? Are they having personality changes? Well, this is just another aspect that we need to be aware of, that we need to be sensitive to see if race relations in this country, if the political climate in this country, if that is having an effect on our aging parents as well. Is that triggering them back to when they were in the 60s? Like, is it a trigger for them? Are they reliving events and experiences they had that negatively affected them over and over again? And so I thought that this was an important and a timely thing to discuss, considering where we are right now in the country, considering, it seemed like for a while, every time we turned the TV on, there was another African American woman or man being killed by police. Considering right now that the Derek Chauvin trial is being aired on TV. So we need to be thinking about how these race-related incidents and experiences are affecting our aging loved ones. And so that's one, like the overt racism is one thing that we definitely need to be thinking about. But then the article really points out that the cumulative experiences does not just stop with the overt racist acts, with police officers killing Black men or overt racist acts that make it to the news. That is not where it stops. It goes on to say that for African American older adults, exposure to cumulative experiences of racism has resulted in limited access to resources such as education, employment, healthcare, housing, and political participation, contributing to health disparities and increased rates of mental health disorders such as depression, anxiety, and dementia. And so when you add those more covert, those more systemic forms of racism in there as well, on top of the overt acts of racism, and you look at that as accumulation of experiences, then, that had me a little troubled. They had me a little worried for my parents who just turned 70. I was just thinking about all the different ways that they have experienced racism throughout the years. And what is the cumulative effect? How has that affected them? And what are the things that happen now that trigger that? And so that was something that really got me to really thinking about, am I paying enough attention to that? Do I need to be asking other questions? Do I need to be checking in with them? Now, this report was for healthcare professionals because what it said was that service providers in the aging and healthcare fields need greater awareness, education, and training to competently address race-related stress in African American older adults. And so what that told me was currently healthcare professionals aren't addressing that issue. They aren't asking those questions. Race-related stressors and race-related stress is not something that is being considered when your parents go to the doctor. So I think is even more incumbent upon us to be sensitive to that and cognizant of that. And so what it did do was it gave some suggestions for healthcare providers. And as I was reading the suggestions, I said, well, these are great suggestions, not just for healthcare providers. These are great suggestions for us as well, as if we have aging parents, if we have aging loved ones. These are great suggestions for us too, where this is related. And so the first thing it said was understand the impact of racism. I think we're good there. I think we definitely understand the impact of racism. And so I think we can move on to number two. Number two was listen with empathy. And I think I will definitely make a point to listen with empathy and listen with the knowledge that when your aging loved ones are talking, they're just not talking about this one particular incident. They are talking about their cumulative lived experience, the cumulative race-related stressors that they have experienced. And so this may just be the like icing on the cake. This may be like the straw that breaks the back, but this is not the total experience. And so we have to be sure that when we listen with empathy, we're listening with empathy with the understanding that we should be thinking about the full and total experience. The next thing is to create safe spaces. And I think that's important, to create space where our aging loved ones can talk about these things, where they can have dialogue around race. And I think sometimes in our community, we credit being strong with being silent and holding things in. And I think when you hold this type of thing in, when you hold these stressors in, that it can show up in other ways. And so we want them to feel safe to talk about it and get it out and not hold it in and have other negative medical effects because of it. The next thing I wanted to make sure that I pointed out was it said to be mindful of triggers. And I think that is super important. Is your parent at home all day because they're retired? Do they sit in their favorite chair or on the couch and watch CNN all day? Are they aware? Do they have alerts on their phone for breaking news? Like, are they getting every race-related news story directly to their phone, or are they seeing it on TV all day, every day? And is that having a negative impact on them? Do they need to take a break? Do they need to maybe not watch the news every day, all day? Do they need to do some physical exercise or, have other outings or things that take their mind away from the negative stories that they may be seeing? And is seeing those negative stories triggering other past experiences that they've had? I think those are things that we should be mindful of and think about. The other one was be aware. And I think that was the whole point of me doing this particular episode, was just to share with you what I had read so that you could be mindful of that with your own loved ones and family members. And then it says refer to mental health services and support. And there is nothing wrong and there is no shame in asking for help. And if your loved one is having a difficult time with stress, whether it's race related or otherwise, there you should be seeking help, a therapist or a counselor that may be able to help them talk through it and help them get through whatever is causing stress and anxiety in their life. And then that last one is advocate. And I think that is the point of this podcast, that we give you nuggets, that we give you information, that we have people on who are important and who have information to share with you about your aging loved ones so that you can be the best advocate for them that you can be. And so this is a different landscape. Things are changing. The dynamics between you and your parents are changing. And I know if you're anything like me, you want to make sure you do the best by them because, and I'll speak for myself, I want to make sure that I have as much information and as many resources as possible so that I can do the best by my parents because I felt like growing up, they did the best for me. They did the best by me. And so I want to make sure that I return the favor. I hope that this is just part one. I hope that we can get somebody to come on for an interview so that we can discuss race-related stress in aging adults further and more in depth because I do think it is a topic that is very relevant now. And I think it is a topic that we don't talk a lot about. So I'm going to leave it there for this episode. As always, we love feedback. We love to hear from you. We love to hear show ideas. We love to hear what you thought about particular episodes. We love your feedback. And so if you have missed some episodes and you want to catch up, you can listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also always listen to us on our website, which is www.srlawgrp.com. We are on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at SR Law Group. And so, like us, stop by, leave us a comment. We want to hear what you have to say. And I'm going to leave the link for this article in the show notes so that you guys can look at it and read it as well. And like I said, hopefully we will have a part 2 where we can discuss this further. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day. I will see you back, same place, same time next week. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for joining us this week on Black Parents Aging. Check out our Facebook group at Black Parents Aging, where we go live to answer your questions. For more info on today's topic, check out the show notes on our website, srlawgrp.com. If you know someone who could benefit from today's episode, please share a link to the show. Subscribe to the show to catch new episodes and leave a review. Until next week.